Good afternoon. The March 10th meeting of the Longview Metropolitan Planning Organization and Policy Board is now called to order. Today's meeting is being conducted via teleconference. We thank you for your understanding. We'll start this meeting off with a roll call. Confirm members are present. Board members, when I call your name, please respond in affirmative if you are present. Gray County Judge Bill Stout. Upshur County Judge Todd Tefteller. Gladwater Mayor J.D. Shipp.
Here.
White Oak Mayor Cal Cooch.
Here.
Harrison County Commissioner Philip Molden.
Here.
TxDOT Tyler Director Vernon Webb.
Here.
TxDOT Atlanta Engineer Buddy Williams.
Buddy here, it looks like he is self-muted at this time.
Okay. City Manager Keith Bonds.
Here.
Public Works Director Roland McPhee.
Here.
Public Services Michael Shirley.
Here.
MPO Ingrid Self.
Here.
MPO Brian McBride.
Here.
Great. Thank you for your attendance today. Now the citizen comment. Mr. Yeckley, any citizens wish to speak during our meeting during the citizen comment portion?
We have a citizen here. They do not have their hand raised to speak, and they're not doing so at this time, so I think you're good to move forward.
Very good. I will go to the agenda item, approval of the October 28, 2020 minute meetings. Board members, are there any comments or revisions of the minutes being presented? If not, we'll move to a vote. Is there a motion?
This is Roland McPhee. I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Michael Shirley, second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll now have a roll call vote. Mayor J.D. Shipp.
Approve.
Mayor Cooch.
Approve.
Commissioner Malden.
Approve.
Mr. Webb.
Approved.
Mr. Williams.
Approved.
Mr. Bonds.
Approved.
Mr. McPhee.
Approve.
Shirley.
Approve.
And I approve as well. Mr. McBride, please confirm record of the vote.
Thank you. The motion to approve the minutes was made by Roland McPhee, seconded by Michael Shirley. The motion passes 9-0.
We're now to agenda item 4, approval of the resolution adopting the Texas Department of Transportation 2021 Safety Performance Measures PM1 targets. This item will be presented by Ms. Ingrid Self. Ms. Self.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. Today we'll be reviewing and adopting 3 sets of targets set by the state in compliance with HWA requirements. We'll start with the 5 safety measures, or PM1. Each year, the state adopts targets in the following areas for safety: the number of fatalities, rate of fatalities, number and rate of serious injuries, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. This year, when setting targets for the number and rate of fatalities, TxDOT modified their methodology to incorporate the Road to Zero initiative, acknowledging that any loss of life is unacceptable and that a majority of motor vehicle crashes can be prevented. The Texas Transportation Commission adopted an order in May of 2019 that directed TxDOT to work towards the goal of reducing the number of deaths on Texas roadways by half by the year 2035 and to 0 by the year 2050. So when discussing these targets, please remember that we are all embracing the vision of eliminating fatalities on our roadways. But to get there will require making intentional improvements over time and addressing all of the contributing factors, many of which are linked to driver behavior. So if we could go to the next slide. With the new formula for calculating the state's fatality targets, TxDOT has approved the following. In 2021, decrease the expected rise in fatalities to not more than a 5-year average as shown. The calendar year target for 2021 is 3,384, again acknowledging that no loss of life is considered acceptable. In the same spirit, the state set a rate of fatalities, which is to decrease the rate to not more than a 5-year average as shown. The calendar year target for 2021 is 1.25 fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. Moving on to the targets involving serious injuries. The 2021 target is to decrease the expected rise of serious injuries to not more than a 5-year average of 17,151, with a calendar year target for 2021 at 18,835. Again, the rate to decrease the serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled to not more than a 5-year average of 6.06 and a 2021 calendar year target of 6.51 serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And lastly, to decrease the expected rise of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries to not more than a 5-year average is shown here. The 2021 calendar year target would be 2,560 non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Regionally, we take safety very seriously. The Longview MPO has adopted safety as its highest project selection weighting criteria and applies more points to potential projects where the number and rate of crashes are above the state average. These targets are set utilizing TxDOT and TTI's extensive data collection and analysis. Therefore, the MPO staff recommends supporting the state safety targets as presented in this table. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Ms. Self at this point in time? If not, we'll move to a vote. Is there a motion?
This is Vernon Webb. I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
This is Roland McPhee. I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. We'll move to a roll call vote. Mayor Shipp?
Approve.
Mayor Coach?
Approve.
Commissioner Malden?
Approved.
Mr. Webb?
Approved.
Mr. Williams?
Approved.
Mr. Bonds?
Approved.
Mr. McPhee?
Approve.
Mr. Shirley?
Approve.
I approve as well. Mr. McBride, please confirm record of the vote.
Thank you. The motion to approve the agenda item 4 was made by Vernon Webb, seconded by Roland McPhee. The motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. We are now on to action agenda item 5, approval of resolution adopting the modifications of the Texas Department of Transportation's Pavement and Bridge Performance Measure, PM2 targets. Ms. Self.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is to discuss and recommend adoption of the state's modified targets for pavement and bridge. PM2 includes 6 metrics related to the condition of key elements of roadway infrastructure, providing measurements for good and poor conditions of interstate pavement, non-interstate pavement, and bridges. TxDOT is responsible for collecting the necessary measurements to determine the condition ratings defined by FHWA. When the initial targets were set in 2018, TxDOT had recently switched from a method using visual pavement surveys to a more automated method of data collection. 3 years later, more consistent pavement data can be used to develop new targets. As you can see on the slide, this has resulted in a slight improvement in the statewide performance targets for interstate pavement in good condition and conversely with those in poor condition. For non-interstate pavement, the 2-year target was exceeded. Much of this can be attributed to TxDOT's effort in improved pavement management, maintenance, and rehabilitation strategies. In particular, the preservation strategy of keeping good roads good has contributed to a higher percentage of pavements in good condition and fewer in poor. Regionally, we're doing exceptionally well for pavement quality with 0% rated poor on the interstate and only 4.4 rated poor on non-interstate roadways. TxDOT's 2020 target projected a slight decrease from the 2018 baseline for bridges in good condition, and the 2-year actual exceeded the target. Several factors can be attributed here. In addition to the state's consistent efforts to improve the infrastructure, they are also making improvements in the lines of communication. New workflows and roles within the Texas Bridge System inspection system are helping capture the information that comes from those routine bridge inspections and then coordinate it with the information in the infrastructure maintenance plans. The target for bridges in poor condition is being adjusted in the interest of risk-based planning. Considering the number of bridges in fair condition, it stands to reason some will transition into poor over the next few years. Increasing the target from 0.8% to 1.5% acknowledges the uncertain risk that can cause this measure to vary from year to year, including the possibility that a small number of very large bridges could fall into poor condition, which will skew that number. And that's kind of what happened here. In 2019, the National Bridge Inventory submittal included data on damage to several large bridges, resulting in an unanticipated increase in the percentage of deck area rated poor. The bridges were rehabilitated and are no longer rated poor, but that work occurred after the submittal. So that's why we see the increase here from 0.9% in 2018 to 1.3% in 2020. And so again, confident in the state's data collection methods and comprehensive analysis, MPO staff recommends supporting the state targets for pavement and bridge. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Self, at this time? If not, we will entertain a vote. A motion, please.
This is Keith Bonds. I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Michael Shirley, I second.
We have a motion, a second. We'll have roll call vote now. Mayor Shipp?
Approve.
Mayor Cooch?
Approve.
Commissioner Malden?
Approved.
Webb?
Approved.
Mr. Williams?
Approve.
Mr. Bonds?
Approve.
Mr. McPhee?
Approve.
Mr. Shirley?
Approve.
I approve as well. Mr. McBride, please confirm record of the vote.
Thank you. The motion to approve agenda item 5 was made by Keith Bonds, seconded by Michael Shirley. The motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 6, approve a resolution adopting the modification of the Texas Department of Transportation's system performance and freight performance PM3 targets. Ms. Self.
So this brings us to our last set of targets, the system performance measures, or PM3. These are also set every 4 years and modified as needed. This includes the level of travel time reliability on the interstate, on non-interstate, and the truck travel time reliability index. While most travelers know what their roadway congestion points are and will anticipate some traffic delays in their daily travel, they tend to be less tolerant of unexpected congestion, which can be very disruptive, especially when it results in delayed shipments or deliveries. Travelers want consistency and dependability in travel times. So using data from FHWA's National Performance Management Research Data Set, the level of travel time reliability is calculated as the ratio of the 80th percentile travel time, the longer times due to traffic incidents, special events, inclement weather, et cetera, to the normal travel time. Truck travel time reliability, TTTR, is the ratio of the 95th percentile travel time of trucks to the normal truck travel time. TTR assesses the freight movement on the interstate system and is reported for 5 time periods depending on time of day and day of the week. So the anticipated actual travel time reliability, 2020 values for both interstate and non-interstate appear to be improving greatly. While TxDOT has added additional capacity, including more than 71 lane miles of interstate and more than 1,015 lane miles of non-interstate, there are other variables at play here, including the availability of time series data that allows TxDOT to make adequate projections, and also the changes in the amount of commuter travel. So the updated targets, which are seemingly conservative when looking at the 2-year actuals, will be more representative to what the data will likely show for 2022. The freight reliability has continued to be below the 4-year targets, and the index was adjusted this year from 1.76 to 1.76 from 1.79. Again, Longview MPO staff recommends supporting the state-adjusted targets for system performance measures. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Self, at this time? If not, we'll move to a vote. Is there a motion, please?
Michael Shirley, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Philip Malden, I second.
We have a motion, a second. We have a roll call vote. Mayor Shipp?
Approve.
Mayor Cooch?
Approve.
Commissioner Malden?
Approved.
Mr. Webb?
Approved.
Mr. Williams?
Approved.
Mr. Bonds?
Approve.
Mr. McPhee?
Approved.
Mr. Shirley?
Approved.
I approve as well. Mr. McBride, please record the vote.
Thank you. The motion to approve agenda item 6 was made by Michael Shirley, seconded by Philip Malden. Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you, sir. We're now on to other business discussion regarding a recommended threshold change to the Metropolitan Statistical Area. This item will be presented by Ms. Self. Ms. Self.
Thank you, Mayor. As some of you may have heard, or you may have seen the article in the Sunday News Journal, a recommendation was filed in January with the Office of Management and Budget in Washington to change the minimum threshold of a metropolitan statistical area's urbanized area from 50,000 to 100,000. The existing thresholds have been in place since the 1940s, and the reason given for the proposed change in the Federal Register, it simply stated, continuing change in U.S. population and activity patterns. The Longview MSA covers Gregg, Rusk, and Upshur counties and includes a population of more than 280,000. However, the threshold change that they're referring to is the urban core, where there's a relatively high density and close economic ties throughout the area. So other factors are included other than just population. After the 2010 census, the urbanized area for the Longview MPO was 98,884. The authors of this proposed change make claim that the MSAs are used by the OMB for statistical purposes only and are not tied to any funding model. They say the delineations simply provide a nationally consistent set of geographic areas for collecting, tabulating, and publishing federal statistics. However, the same language and references to urbanized areas and metropolitan areas can be found duplicated across several transportation and housing programs. The Census Bureau also has an urbanized area definition. The similarities in definitions across the bureaus and offices and the way the language appears to tie back to how communities are evaluated for funding is concerning to us. Assuming the next transportation bill follows suit with a change in threshold and definition, this could result in the dismantling of 144 MPOs across the nation, 5 in Texas, and one of those possibly the Longview MPO. So in our urbanized area was almost 99,000 in 2010. The 2020 Census Bureau data is not available yet, and they too have a recommendation out for comment that would completely change the way they calculate urbanized areas, focusing more on density and housing units rather than population and shortening commuter travel distances. With all of these possible changes and no definitive timeline, it's very hard to say where Longview would fall. For Longview and for the Longview MPO, we feel not only are transportation dollars and regional discretion in transportation decisions at risk, but so are other government programs tied to a community being defined as a metropolitan or urbanized area, including bus transportation funding distributed by FTA and community development block grant funding. As you know, Longview Transit provides an essential service to minority, low-income, elderly, and disabled residents, and it may be their only means of transportation to employment, to medical facilities, and grocery stores. I talked to Scott Lewis about this, and he said probably 95% of his riders use this as their only means of transportation to get from point A to point B. So in summary, if the MSA proposal is approved, which would be done administratively, it could be a first step toward federal programs adjusting their population thresholds when it comes to distributing funds to communities. Some of the ripple effects from that are, as I mentioned, the dismantling of the MPOs, potential loss of services and programs impacting low-income and minority populations through CDBG and Longview Transit, and even economic development corporations often use MSAs as an attracting tool. So there's a lot of unknowns, and at this point, we're making some assumptions about what could happen, but I do think this is something where our community needs to voice opposition. We know that this happened also about 10 years ago, and our community and other communities were able to put up enough resistance to kill the effort. So what we're working on right now, as far as formal comment back to the OMB, is 2 letters. One that the 5 Texas MPOs is putting together, and that we hope will include elected officials and concerned officials' signatures, and one that Kelly Hall and the Longview Chamber of Commerce is working on with the other chambers in those affected communities. Based on the instructions posted in the Federal Register, when it comes to contributing comments, more is not more. They will lump letters that they think are form letters or have too much of the same information and count them as one. So because of that, the groups have decided to put together fewer letters with more signatures for hopefully a greater impact. If any of you, and of course, I'm available to talk further about this with anybody that wants to. If any of you want to write up your own letter, that's great. You might want to review the letters that are being composed by the 2 groups first, just to make sure that all of your comments are unique, and so yours will count. And hopefully, tomorrow the MPOs are meeting, and hopefully by the week's end, we'll have a copy of that letter that we can distribute to you all. So I just wanted to lay this issue out before you, let you know what was going on. I will be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Ms. Sell, thank you for this presentation. I have all the confidence in the world that our MPO will formulate a letter that will represent us to the utmost with those involved. And if there's any way or anyone we might need to speak to or have influence with, please let each one of us know that if you would happen to know any of those areas that we could have a potential effect on. Any other questions or discussions of Ms. Self at this time? Okay, thank you for your nice presentation today, Ms. Self. We also want to highlight our MPO staff. Brian McBride, who has been with us today, is the new Longview MPO Director and Transportation Planning Manager of the City of Longview. Welcome, Brian. And Sharon McCord has served as the MPO as the Transportation Planning Technician. Thank you, Sharon. Brian has been with the city in the Planning and Zoning Division of Development Services, and we know he'll do a great job at Longview MPO, and congratulations to him. With there are no other questions or concerns, we will be adjourned. Thank you so much for attending today.